I apologize, that was very loud on my end. So yeah, I graduated from Seneca College in 2015, and I started my degree program at Seneca in 2016. So I took a year off as well, and I was working within the field of recreation therapy. I was working at a retirement home. From there, I decided to branch into the degree program to open up more job opportunities for myself. From there, I did a fast track as I transferred my diploma credits to my degree at Seneca. Then from there, I went from Seneca's degree program into my master's program immediately in the fall at McMaster, and I did a master's of science in rehabilitation science. From there, I learned more about the field, about rehabilitation, which now I'm transferring into my job as I work at Lambton in Mississauga and Queen's College. And I'm working as the program coordinator and a placement coordinator of the recreation therapy program here.
Excellent. Yvonne sends her wishes. One, your former professor and coordinator.
Yes, she's wonderful.
In our alumni panels, right, Shayna, I believe?
Yes, I'm in a few, yes. And yeah,
yes.
Wonderful,
So
yes.
You represent DTR really amazing. Excellent. So
thank you.
Is that up in England or west or wherever you are in England? Feel free to share your journey and your story.
Thank you for having me. My name is Najeda. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know. But ironically, I actually graduated 2015 from high school and started my journey at U of T as well. I went to the U of T Mississauga campus, and I kind of just aimlessly went into university because that was the next best thing to do. And same kind of thing as Avi, I kind of just went in with a full steam ahead and then kind of decided, okay, this is maybe not so smart, knowing that I don't know where I want to go in direction wise. So I studied business. I did a management course at U of T, and then I decided, okay, I want to specialize a little bit further. So I went into the fashion business management program at Seneca. Wonderful course, very hands-on. As soon as I landed, I realized, okay, yeah, this is where I need to be. And then from there, when I graduated in 2020, I learned about the degree pathway. And that took me over to Manchester, England, where I studied international fashion business at the Manchester Metropolitan University. Once I completed that course, which was a one-year top-up, I earned my degree. And from there, I decided to stick around and see if I can get some working experience here in England. And that took me down to London, where I am living now. And I did an internship with Dior's flagship in London. So I worked with them for a little while, and now I am still on Bond Street, which is the main fashion street in London. But I'm now at another flagship, which is a bridal company, which is where I specialize. So that's what I'm doing now.
Excellent, excellent. All right, we'll talk more about that. We're going to turn it back to Avi, kind of my second question. And if you really want to hone in, I know you all touched on it. Why did you really decide to pursue another education credential? I know you had before, but why did you go for the specific one at Seneca, your international business one?
Well, the reason I went specifically for international business is just because that's what I started in for the diploma program. But more broadly speaking, the reason I wanted to go for a degree as opposed to a diploma is that in general, having more education is always going to be an asset. It's always going to open more doors. And I figured that if I want to do graduate studies down the road, regardless of what pathway I took after Seneca, I would need a degree in order to be able to do that. So, it is important to have those, those letters after your name, BCom or BA, whatever it's going to be. That was my primary reasoning.
Excellent. And Camille, what was your primary reason?
Yeah, I think it echoes what Abby just mentioned. Similarly, it was about preparing myself for more job opportunities and being able to build up my resume, knowing the importance of that, and being able to break into the fields that I was looking to get into. But one of the other things was after I was in Seneca, I realized I wasn't too bad at being a student. I had the confidence, I kind of built up my learning abilities, and I found it to be a really safe space to really expand on how I learned as a student. So I thought, this is something that I can now transition over into the university space and be successful as a student there.
Excellent. And you had Alphazina Chang, I'm sure, as your professor. And you still keep in touch with some of your HR professors? I know it's been a few years.
It's been a few years. I don't think we've kept in touch. The name is indeed ringing a bell.
Perfect. Shayna, tell us specifically why you went from DTR to doing your master's at McMaster.
Yeah, definitely. So it actually kind of started to stem from when I went from diploma to degree. I had a lot of confidence issues and I felt that I wasn't smart enough, and there was a lot of concerns in that way. So then when I went to Seneca, I found, wow, I'm actually really good at this. I really enjoy school. I really enjoy research. I really enjoy learning more about things. All of the professors at Seneca were absolutely fantastic and really boosting my confidence and showing me that I do have potential, which has made me move into my master's, made me move into my master's program, just because I had that can-do attitude that developed during my Seneca time. And I knew that I wanted to move into higher positions within my field. And I knew that with the master's education, that would help to elevate that.
Were there other schools on your list? I was thinking masters, like was McMaster your first choice, or because of
McMaster was my first and only choice? Yeah.
first? Okay. And you moved to Hamilton, obviously, right?
No, so it was actually online. So it was, yeah, I started just before the pandemic and it was online, and then it just stayed online. And so I was kind of okay with that.
Excellent. And Najeda, tell us, why Canada and England?
I think I've always wanted to pursue education abroad. It's always been something that's been on my list. I've always loved to travel from a young age, and so doing my education abroad was always something that appealed to me, because why not? I had an opportunity to go away for schooling in Italy when I was at U of T, and then when I transitioned to Seneca, I kind of felt like, okay, maybe I lost that opportunity for now. And then I heard about the degree pathways, and really when it came to the degree pathway, it kind of took me back a little bit full circle, because I transitioned from university into college. And so with the initial intention of earning a university degree, I felt, okay, this is my opportunity to regain that and kind of take it by a different angle, and doing it in a different country obviously is more enticing to me, because the opportunity to travel is right up my alley. So that was the main reason. And now I honestly, I've allowed myself to kind of be here and experience working. So it's provided a lot of more opportunities that I never really thought of initially. But really kind of going from from school to work, it's been a good transition as well. So.
And you're loving England, right?
Yes, I'm loving England. I mean, the climate's not so much different from Toronto, so somewhat feels at home. But yeah, so far so good.
You said you're working in the main streets there. Like are you commuting transit or driving or walking?
Yeah, commuting by transit in the city center of London. It's not easy to drive. It's almost easier to just pick up and walk everywhere, to be honest. So I'm right in the city center, which is zone 1 within the transit system. And I work in zone 1 and I live in zone 1. So it's about a 30-35 minute commute to work on the tube. And that's the easiest it can get, I think.
Perfect. All right. So turn it back to Abby. So this is where we get to talk about our awesome Pathways team. Abby, how did you find the transfer process with Seneca and the Pathways team?
Honestly, pretty seamless. Like, I didn't really have any complaints about just doing that transfer process. It was not something where I had to do a ton of paperwork. I think I just had to make the request, if I remember correctly. And obviously you have to have the grades for it. But once that was in, I just, maybe waited a week or two and then got the approval. And then that was that. I was booked up for the next semester. So that was very seamless.
Excellent. And Camille, how was your pathway process? I know it was a few years ago, but the team was still at Newnham. Well, it's always been at Newnham, but yeah, let us know.
Absolutely. It was definitely a similar experience. It was very easy to work with the coordinators at the time and just kind of understand what credits could actually be transferred over. And when we started having those conversations, I realized it was a number of credits, and that my time at university would actually be much shorter. I thought it would be longer, but I completed a 2-year program at Ryerson. So that actually made it feel a lot more achievable, knowing that, okay, you know, I've actually completed a lot of these courses ahead of time. They can be transferred over or credited to me, and that 2 years at university didn't seem so scary then.
And is there any advice on prepping? Like, I'm sure I'm asked all of you about your prepping for it. How much research did you do before?
Absolutely. It does require a little bit of research. I think it's thinking about what you want to do and you know the type of degree that you want to go into, and that research includes, you know, talking to people, you know, talking to people who have gone through the experience already, connecting with your LinkedIn network, asking others who have gone through that journey and saying, hey, like, did you find it useful? Was this something that helped you in your career path? And that was something that really helped me kind of decide, hey, I could transfer from Seneca to Ryerson, and you know, here's where it could land me as a result.
Excellent, excellent. And Shayna, tell us about your transfer process.
Yeah, so mine's a little different just because I did my degree at Seneca. So I did do a transfer process from my diploma to my degree, where at Seneca, where I went and I spoke with the department, the registration department, the academic department as well. I talked a lot with the academic pathways about what transfer credits I would get, because originally when I was starting at the DTR program, unfortunately, they weren't accepting recreation therapy students. And so I asked them why not. And I actually was able to help them to initiate that now they were accepting recreation therapy students as a transfer student to Seneca. And so I had, again, mine was about a 2.5-year process as well. I had a lot of help with my PLAs as well, my prior learning assessments, to help to incorporate some of the other experience that I had during life. And then for my degree to master's degree, I had a lot of help from my professors, actually, where they were helping with my academic references and talking about what was beneficial for me, and also talking about possibly going into my PhD, which ones I need to look at to make sure that I could also branch into a PhD if I would like to.
Wow. Okay. Are you thinking still about a PhD or?
I am. I'm thinking about applying for next year, but we will see.
That would be obviously online. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. And Najada, tell us about your transfer process into the internet.
I think mine, because it was a little bit more of a transition in terms of the international aspect. But for the most part, it was seamless. It was really, really well orchestrated by the Seneca team. I initially got the ball was rolling from the presentation that was offered by a lady named Jane, who at the time, she's retired now, but at the time she was the kind of the degree pathway on the other side. So she worked for Manchester Metropolitan University, and she was the delegate assigned to international students. And so she had visited Toronto, she had visited the Newnham campus, and she had given a couple of presentations to the fashion students about the program, and the program coordinator, Anna, was able to kind of invite us to see the presentation, and which I did. And as soon as I heard about the program, it sparked something, and I said, okay, this is for me. This sounds like something I want to do. From there, I contacted Jane specifically just to find out more information about the program, get all of the kind of information that I can get. She put me in a contact with her kind of assistant at the time, I would say Lindsay. And then from there, I contacted Jennifer at our campus, and she kind of gave me all the information that I needed for what I needed to do and how I needed to prepare. But once all the paperwork was kind of done, I didn't have to do too much. Really, it was kind of organizing my end of the things when it came to the traveling part, because obviously the visa and everything like that had to be sorted out. But once everything was processed from Seneca over to Manchester, Jane specifically was the one that kind of approved everything, made sure everything was on hand. So I think just the absolute open communication on either end made for a really, really easy transition for me, especially.
Excellent. I'm glad you mentioned Professor Anna. She gave you a shout out on LinkedIn. So always good. I'm sure all four of you had great experiences with your professors that have also helped you out through this journey and this transition. So always like to hear great things about the professors. Encourage students to keep in touch. Let's jump to this question the way, like, Abby, let's start. How do you find the transition between diploma to degree? So studying diploma at Seneca, and studying a degree. How was that transition? Obviously, a different courses, we'll say.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I thought that the degree might be, a lot harder than the diploma, which, I'm not going to say that it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it also wasn't extremely difficult. But I actually found it quite, also quite seamless. Like the diploma program laid down quite a good foundation, especially considering that it's an international business program for the diploma and for the degree. So it laid down quite a good foundation for the stuff that we were going to be doing in the degree program. But I think probably the most important thing that I did at Seneca, both in the degree and the diploma program, was the group work. That's actually critical. I know in school, everybody kind of hates group work because, there's always that one student that's really not pulling their weight, or, it seems like a lot of the tasks kind of fall on you if you're the hard worker. But in reality, like, the group work is the most important thing. It teaches you how to work with people. And that's really what it is in the real world. Once you get out into the real world and you're working with people, you're working with a bunch of different personalities, and learning how to deal with that early on, both in the diploma and the degree program, it's very, very important. And sorry, go ahead.
Was there a lot of diploma students in the degree program with you, like that graduated with you?
There were a decent amount that made the transition as well. But I think there were also quite a few that started off in the degree program as well. Okay. And we had quite a lot of group work in both programs, especially in the in the degree program. We had a 2-semester long capstone project where we had to do certain research, and it was a very long process to get that one done, but very reflective of what it's like in the real world.
Excellent. Camille, tell us about the Seneca HR program to Ryerson's program.
Yeah, absolutely. I say this all the time, that a lot of the knowledge that I gained from Seneca, it was very practical. It's things that I use in my day-to-day all the time. And not to say the things that I learned at Ryerson wasn't practical, but there was a lot more theory that came with that. So Seneca did help me prepare for some of those theories and lectures and so on, because there was a lot of, note taking that might be there, how to attend lectures and classes and so on, and bringing that over to Ryerson definitely helped me just to be a better student and kind of bring more confidence to my own self as a student, and just learning about the way I learn best. And the way I can absorb information and be able to, be able to write exams and tests and so on. So, that helped me a lot, because I think it made me a better student when I was at Seneca, so that I could be an even better student when I was at Ryerson.
Excellent. And Shayna, tell us about that transition from a Seneca degree to McMaster.
Yeah, so I'll touch on actually both of them. So my diploma to degree at Seneca, it was actually a really easy transition. It was something that I was very, very nervous about going into a degree. I was worried, as at that time I was now considered a mature student. I was worried about not being able to make social connections, having a very different schedule than everyone as I was fast tracking. But I actually found quite a few people. There was about a handful of us that were doing the diploma to degree, and we were actually on the same block transfer, which was great that we were able to go to the same classes together, and it helped us to build more social connections. So that was really nice for my diploma to degree. Then from my degree to my master's, the transition was somewhat smooth in the sense that it was hard to go from in-person to online. That was one of the things that I really struggled with. But all of my professors as well were very helpful. And I know I had support as well back at Seneca if I had any questions or concerns, as majority of my professors had actually gone through a master's program as well. So they were able to give me tips and tricks.
Excellent. Cool. Najeda, tell us about your the Canadian education and the international education.
I think that for me it was maybe a little bit easier because I had done the couple years at U of T. So I kind of knew what the university environment entailed in terms of lecture to tutorial ratio, and that kind of, from the Canadian perspective, obviously. When it came to the transition itself, I think I'm the first person to do my international degree pathway for the fashion school. So there wasn't really anybody to ask how it's supposed to go or what it's supposed to look like. And so with that being said, I kind of had to do a lot of my own research. But once I kind of got in touch with the university in Manchester, they were very open to putting me in contact with any of the alumni on their side, giving me the information that I would need. And it was very thorough. So it was good to kind of give me the confidence to make the leap internationally. When I went over to Manchester, it was right in the middle of the pandemic. I went over in 2020. So at that time, it was a hybrid learning. And throughout my whole year of the course, it was a hybrid kind of scenario. So it was a little bit of a treat to be in person at first, because you kind of got to meet everybody. And then we went into a lockdown, so it was all online. But it was okay, because I initially with my visa, I had started with the time difference. So I was doing online classes at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. From Toronto. And then I realized, okay, when I get over there, it's going to be much easier. So the online bit was fine. And then in the end, we kind of finished off a nice full circle with in person again. So that was good. In terms of the transition to university from Seneca, I know one of the ladies mentioned it. I will second it. It's a very good preparation. It's very practical education. The one thing I can say about Seneca time and time again is it's hands-on. Everything that you learn, you're going to use. And now being in my early stages of my career, I can see how useful all of those things were. All the skills that we kind of practiced and honed in on, that was really something that I would always take with me. But I was definitely anticipating a different pace for university. I was definitely thinking that I wanted to take a leap in my academic career, and I knew that it would be a bigger course load, and more would be expected from me. But I think at that time I was ready for that, and that's kind of what pushed me to go forward.
And how much early did you arrive before the pandemic? You started in 2020, so it was like January or February?
No, so my program started in September 2020. At that time, it was still kind of an in-between phase, because over in the UK, they went through like 3 or 4 phases of lockdowns. So there was a period where they would kind of go through a tiered system, where it's levels of how restricted that they were. And at that time, when I had moved into Manchester, it was just at the kind of brink of a very restricted time. And so I had gotten in, we'd gotten settled, and then they decided to lock down just before Christmas. And so I would say maybe November, moving there mid-September. By November, they were full lockdown, only the essentials. So there was no kind of social aspect of life there, which was a little bit difficult, because you think, okay, I'm going into university, I'm trying to meet new people, and then it's like there's a lockdown and I can't really leave my place. So it's like you have to kind of be a little bit inventive on obviously I met a couple friends, and we were able to kind of get each other through the pandemic. And I'm sure that we all kind of had our own difficulties in orchestrating how we would maneuver through that as students. But the university on both ends were very supportive, and I can definitely give them credit for that.
That's great to hear about the support, especially to get your university in England. Just figuring, I got the planes behind me. I'm sure people notice we have an airport campus in Peterborough, so maybe any one of these planes could get us to England. There's 12 planes there. All right, let's do the final question. Abby, give us some tips and advice on Seneca students interested in going from that diploma credential to a degree. Please provide some tips.
For sure. So number one, don't do what I did at first with U of T in York. Just do your research and know what you want to do. Be sure of it, because if you're not sure of it and your heart's not in it, you're not going to do well in it. That's just with anything in life, not just with degrees or studies or whatever. So just figure out what path you want to take. And if that degree is actually going to help you in achieving what you need to achieve. If you only need a diploma to do what it is you want to do the diploma. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you do want to pursue something different where you're going to need that extra education, absolutely go for it. But make sure you do your research and make sure you know that that's exactly what you want.
Excellent. And Camille, what would be your advice and tips?
Absolutely. In addition to, doing your research, I'd say that can include things like connecting and networking. So, asking anybody who's kind of been down that path before, including the panel today, meeting up with or chatting with any of us on LinkedIn, asking any of your follow-up questions, about our paths, because we all have very different paths and we all took very different courses. So if anybody on the call today has additional questions outside of here, reach out to us. In addition to that, virtual tours. I know that was something that was really popular then, just to kind of understand what the university was like. If that's something that can provide of interest to you, especially if it's a lot further from where you live. So again, to Abby's point though, if it's something for you and it's something that you're able to do and you feel it would be good value, especially when you're preparing for the job world, then go for it. I think it's really assessing what your skill set is and where you're looking to go in your career.
Excellent. I'm so glad you mentioned LinkedIn. That's how I found all four of you. But all four of you, of course, are featured in the Success Beyond page, the famous page where you got a photo, I'm sure you know, and a description about your stories. But all four of you on LinkedIn, which is great. So Shayna, do you find with DTR students and alumni, are they on LinkedIn? I don't find them as much. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So I do have quite a few people from DTR on LinkedIn. Maybe it's just if you scroll through my network, you'll be able to find a lot of them there. And I find that a lot of us connect with each other when we kind of find out that we're a part of Seneca Alumni and we all did the DTR program. I find that unfortunately with our profession though as well, there isn't as much of a marketing yourself. And that doesn't really make as much of an impact on our career. It's making a bigger impact now, which is fantastic. And that's why I think a lot of people are starting to sign up now. But for a while, especially even when I was first on LinkedIn, I didn't see a lot of people from DTR on there. So then going into my tips or suggestions, so I completely agree with everything that has been said so far. My tips are more for yourself, of being confident in yourself and asking questions, because a lot of times when people think about asking a question, they get nervous, they're scared, they think that somebody is going to think less of them. But I ask a million questions. I'm on the other side of it now where I'm a professor and I still ask so many questions because that's how we learn. And it's important that you make sure to ask those questions, be confident in yourself, your skills, your abilities. That's really important. And of course, just echoing everything that was said before, researching first, looking at jobs that you're interested in acquiring at some point in your career, looking at what they're asking you for and pursuing whatever that may be. If that's what you feel when you look at the job description, you say, yeah, that is something I would love to do.
Excellent. Jada, please tell us, your tips and advice.
I would definitely advise people to go on to the more international aspects. I think that throughout my university career, and I might contradict Abby a little bit because I really appreciate the 2 years that I kind of spent at U of T, because it's education, and I always believe that you'll never regret getting an education. You'll never regret learning something, even if it's not something that you think you'll use right away. I'm a firm believer in learning it anyway. I would definitely advise people to reach out to beyond your community, see what's out there in the world, get on a plane and go. Travel for me has taught me so many things about myself, taught me so many things about my community. I was fortunate to take an international fashion degree in an international environment. So it was learning at all aspects, learning about the market, learning about the consumer, and not just on paper, but actually seeing it in real life. It was completely different from a Canadian market. But I would definitely, yes, second to the questions. Yeah, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and get the information, because there's somebody that's willing to help you. And I think that as a student, sometimes you can be a little bit hesitant because you kind of find, okay, maybe let me not reach out, or let me be a little bit wary of where I put myself. But even LinkedIn considered, send the message, ask the question. The worst thing you'll get is a no or no response, or, and it's not time wasted. If you can get an education, if you can gain new experiences, all for it.
Excellent. That's a lot of good advice, a lot of good comments, a lot of good of everything. I was just commenting, we have a star Seneca alumni who's been in Red Magazine. Hello, Michael Burgess is out there. Hopefully you four someday will make our alumni magazine called Red coming in your mailboxes. But do we have any questions from the audience? Like, there was a lot covered and a lot of great advice, and I don't know if there's any specific questions. I know some people have dropped out and on the chat or on the call. You know, it's 1:45. I don't know if anybody has questions, Jennifer, or feel free to write it in the chat, I'd say. I guess my only question to, I guess, all of you is, thanks, Barry, honor, okay. I guess one final question, I'll just, you know, close with all of you now that, you know, we're in this next phase of the post-pandemic. You know, obviously, you know, we're still dealing with the COVID and lockdown, well, not lockdowns, but a change in the world, change in employment and stuff. Can each of you touch on how things changed for you in the last couple of years in your work industry? Because all four of you right now are working. Just to close, Avi, if you want to make some comments in your area.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated in 2020, it was, you know, just as COVID hit. I finished up my degree while I graduated in April, and, you know, lockdown hit in March.
Okay.
So I was working for the government at the time. And because of that, because of COVID, they essentially stopped rehiring people who were on contract. I wasn't a permanent employee. So from that point, I was out of work for essentially 8 months. 8 months in lockdown, 8 months not working. And that was very, I guess I would say, taxing on me emotionally, just because, you know, obviously you feel like you're doing nothing. You're not sure what direction you're going to do, all those things. But then I started working for Dell Technologies, and that's how I got into tech. So that was a fully remote job, and I'd never really worked remote before. Like, that was a totally new experience. But like, working that way and learning how to work remotely, that was a great asset for me, because many tech companies these days work remotely, and a lot of them have been remote, you know, even before the pandemic, like fully remote. So learning how to work in that kind of environment, that was a big asset for me. And now in my current job, I come to the office just because I like it. You know, we've got a lot of perks here. We've got an open bar. We've got a bunch of snacks. It's a lot of fun. But that's kind of how it is in the tech world. So I don't have to come to the office. I just choose to a couple times a week. Yeah, and that's kind of how it's affected me so far. Oh, and by the way, I talked to my management before coming to this engagement to speak, and they offered to essentially give anybody who would like to take them up on it some free advice on their career planning or the tech world or how to get into that. So if anybody would like to do that, please drop me a line on LinkedIn. I'll connect you guys. You can get some swag as well. Just let me know.
Excellent. Thank you, Abby. And Camille, how's it changed? I know you're on your maternity leave started recently, or?
Yeah, baby girl was born in July. So we are
July 31st?
July 13th. So she's just 3 months old.
Okay.
So I'm currently on maternity leave. So it's, for me, I've been in the industry for a bit longer. And so, been both in the office and online. Thank you, everybody. And it's a change, right? From going and commuting and spending an hour and a half to now having to wake up, roll out, and open up your laptop, right? There's pros and cons with the work from home and going into the office, of course. I think a little bit different for myself is because I work in change management. I actually help people through this change and understanding that we can do a hybrid or a balance. So one of the big projects I worked on at the WSIB is transitioning everybody to the work from home, and now transitioning them back into the office in a hybrid setting. And I've heard all the concerns, of wanting to go back and those who don't want to go back at all. It's, for me, it's about simple steps, small steps. Being able to go back into the office and meet your peers and get a coffee and go out for drinks after work and get that social aspect back. But also balancing your work from home life, time with your family and my newborn, those are things that I'm thinking about as well. So, I think there's pros and cons to the work from home, but it's been a crazy ride. I'm sure everybody can attest to that.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And Shayna, how about your industry? And you're commuting, I understand, from commuting to Mississauga.
Yes, so I actually transitioned jobs, but I was working in the healthcare field. And it's definitely not any new news to anyone that the healthcare field had a very devastating effect from COVID-19. It was really hard. It was a hard process to be a part of. It was hard to not be able to touch clients anymore, to provide that, gentle touch, and having to have them so distanced apart, not recognizing you. I know a lot of my clients as well. It was really hard for them to hear me with the mask on. And that was something that was really hard, having all of that. It was very hard, and it's still pretty hard on the healthcare field. A lot of us are still wearing masks. A lot of us still have to social distance. And then just having to cope with the loss of clients during COVID and things like that as well has been very hard. It's been very hard overall for the healthcare field. So that's something that was a really hard transition for all of us. And then from there as well, I transitioned into, now I'm back at the office in Mississauga where I'm teaching full time. So that has been a big transition as well, where I was working and living in the Barrie area. And now I'm living in the Barrie area, but commuting to Mississauga. I have a lot more road rage than I thought I would have before from driving. It is insane, but it's something that I really enjoy. I like being in the office. It's a lot less stressful for me as well, but still shout out to all of the wonderful healthcare practitioners that are out there.
That's great. Zayda, tell us, like, you're in England. Tell us what the world's like up there now.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much back in full effect over here. I think that they had a really great kind of post-lockdown orchestrated system, if you will, where things were done in a step process, and they gave everybody dates to say, okay, in a month's time, this is going to happen, in 2 months' time, and so on and so forth. I come from a little bit of a different world. I'm in retail because I do fashion. So coming from that luxury retail aspect, there was a big remote selling process. There were a lot of things that we kind of rolled out and offered to clients that really wasn't something that was offered before. A lot of partnerships with delivery services, a lot of partnerships with kind of the transport services, and getting our logistics up so that we were able to get clients goods when they needed it. Now, it did take a little bit of a dip because naturally I'm in the luxury retail field, and when there's a pandemic, I mean, you don't necessarily need a new Dior bag right away, but there were still obviously people gifting and people kind of, taking advantage of having some time to themselves and wanting to obviously still enjoy the luxuries of pre-pandemic life. And part of that is retail therapy. And so we did have to kind of adjust a little bit, but post-pandemic, obviously the sales started climbing, people started getting back out there. We did have a little bit of a readjustment in terms of the store environment and how to offer our clients a safe space to kind of enjoy the simple things of shopping in person and being in a store environment, because a lot of people, especially here, it's a big culture. It's a big culture, the luxury shopping. And so they wanted to have that normal feeling again. They wanted to have that kind of normalcy return to their everyday life. And so we did our best to kind of make that possible. And now I'm in a bridal environment, which is a little bit different because it's a little bit more of a personal selling process. And with that being said, we're back to normal, so everything is kind of back to as best as it can be, and hopefully it stays this way, and we can continue to do the things that we love.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate all this. It's almost 2 o'clock, and I just want to keep it, right up to now. No, thank you for everything. On behalf of Seneca Alumni and Pathways, I want to thank our 4 alumni. You've been great ambassadors to Pathways and Alumni. You're featured on the Pathways website. You're in touch with Seneca Alumni. I'll be sending you a special gift after this, courtesy of Manulife, who is your official health, dental, and life insurance. So when you're Seneca Alumni, you have the benefits of insurance, home and autos, TD, health, life, and dental is Manulife. So if you want to, anybody want to keep in touch with Seneca Alumni, or if you have questions, Jordan, if you want to write our email address in the box and our website. And I guess on that note, I think we've covered everything. And if there's no more questions, I want to thank everybody for this afternoon. Hopefully we're all connected on LinkedIn. We all meet up in person.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.